working here. Check the sound. That looks okay. Alright, looks good. I think it's alright. Let me fix this. Alright. So, I want to do something a little different today. I want to go through the Tournament Masterclass again. I've gone through this 1.5 times about. I kind of did it once all the way through and then jumped back to the sections I wanted to work on, and got very busy, and this is about 3 or 5 months ago, and kind of left it where it was. So I reset my counter and decided to go through it again. Yeah, I haven't looked at this since July 6th. So my old philosophy when I got poker books was that even though the first parts would be labeled fundamentals and I'd read it 900 times, my old philosophy was the book didn't count unless I'd read that part too. So I'm just going to go through the whole thing again and make notes along the way. And this is a long course, so I don't know how much of this is going to be on stream, but why not? Might as well try something new. So let's go. So let's do the intro and make sure the sound's on. I'll fix the sound. This is all Jonathan Little, by the way.
Hello everyone, I am Jonathan Little and welcome to the Tournament Masterclass. Before we get started, I want to lay out some ground rules so that you know what to expect and so that you are at the right course. First things first, this masterclass applies to all poker tournaments, online, live, small stakes, high stakes. At the end of the day, poker is poker. The main difference is that as the stakes increase, the skill level of your opponents will tend to increase. Also, you're going to find that online players typically play a little bit better than live players for various reasons. So, you're going to find that when you're playing online, you usually have to play a little bit more of a fundamentally sound strategy. But this class applies to poker tournaments. If you want to get good at poker tournaments, you're in the right place. It's important to realize that you make money when your opponents make mistakes that you do not also make. And you're going to find that most of your profit does not come from your amazingly genius plays, but it actually comes from taking advantage of the things that your opponents do incorrectly, which means that you can't just blindly follow a simple system and win. There are a lot of courses out there that just want to lay out a bunch of charts and say, hey, blindly follow these charts and you'll do great. Hate to break it to you, that's not how poker works, especially if you are trying to win as much money as possible. If you look around back here, we have lots of first place wins in poker tournaments, and that comes from figuring out what my opponents do incorrectly and then adjusting my strategy, sometimes significantly, to take advantage of it. So I'm going to teach you in this course how to play fundamentally sound, but also how to adjust to take advantage of what your opponents do incorrectly. I think poker tournaments are a great choice of game if you want to play a game that is very, very, very profitable, assuming you make it to the high stakes and you're willing to put in time studying and playing. Tournaments are so profitable because the stakes are usually incredibly high at the end of a tournament. If you start a $1,000 buy-in tournament with, let's say, 1,000 people, by the end of the tournament, if there are 10 people left, you're playing a buy-in with something like 100 buy-ins. So you're playing essentially a $100,000 buy-in game at that point. And that results in players being way out of their comfort zones and certainly playing at a buy-in level that they are not adequately equipped based on their skill.
It's kind of a subconscious thing that I've noticed people don't recognize up front. When I first heard this, it kind of hit me that that's true when you get down to the last, 9, 10 players or whatever. You're no longer playing the same buy-in tournament. You're essentially playing a buy-in based on, divide the total prize pool by the number of people left. That's the entry that you now have because you've already won everything behind you, and it's only what you have left to go. So that's why considerations in pay jumps between certain parts and ICM and all those things come in because, as he says, you get down to the last table of let's do it in more my stakes, of a $10 buy-in. with 1,000 people in it, you're now playing $1,000 buy-in because your profit based from here is based on having gotten to that point. And that realizing that didn't affect me how I thought it would, which would make me scared. It actually gave me a lot more freedom because I realized that the other players might not implicitly know that, and they might just only subconsciously know that. So they were more afraid about losing than they were about trying to win. So it's very different between playing not to lose versus playing to win. And it allowed me to amp up my aggression almost immediately when I heard this. The first time I went through this class, it was like, I think it was like March or April of 2020. And I remember hearing that, and I got to a final table shortly thereafter of just a $10 buy-in. And I remember having that thought in my head, and it made me 3-bet more on the final table, which was something that I didn't really do as much. And it actually ended up working out, and I ended up winning the tournament. And it was because by the time we got down to four-handed, I had been stealing and re-stealing so many times that I had something like 65 or 70% of the chips, and it was just a joke. These players were only wanting to play against each other, and the thing of it was, I was involved in every single pot. So because of ICM, they just whittled away. And I remember taking, spots where the players had 9 blinds and I had like 60, and I would just jam it with like king 5, and hitting a king versus somebody with ace jack, and little things like that. And they think that's the part where you got lucky, and it's not. That's the part where you now have a free roll to end somebody. And it was very interesting, the change in my own thought process.
Also, you're going to find that chips change value in tournaments, which makes them difficult. Poker tournaments are difficult games, and that is why they are profitable. If you play a very simple, easy game, turns out you can't actually profit all that much. But if you play a difficult game, they have the potential to be incredibly profitable. Payout implications also really complicate the game, but we'll be discussing all of that throughout this course to make sure that you fully understand how to crush tournament poker. I have a few expectations before we get to the educational content. I expect you to know the fundamentals. If anything in this course confuses you, any terminology, any like the rules of the game, if you're brand new to poker, I suggest you check out my course, Master the Fundamentals. It's available in Poker Code.
All right, I have all this stuff. Go through at least one class each day. That's the goal here. Answer the quiz questions. That's the best part. Question Discord forum. I have done that, and they do have a good Discord. I'm not really familiar with it, so I used to just get to it by clicking the link every day and being anonymous. I'm trying to figure out Discord, but it's just one of those things that eludes me. So let's skip ahead here.
Previous content that you've already been through, so make sure that you are mastering that content so that you don't find yourself lost later in this course. If you have any questions, please ask Equilab on Google, and it'll come right up. If you're on a Mac, I don't think Equilab is what you need to know throughout this course.
All right.
So that's it. That's the introduction. Let's get started.
So we're through the intro. Marked it as complete. Next topic.
Let's discuss the common tournament structure that we will be using throughout this masterclass. So whenever you play a tournament, when you buy in, you're going to get some amount of chips, and then you cannot cash out those chips until you either have all the chips or you lose the tournament, right? And you are given some amount of money based on your finish among all the other players. So typically, roughly 1 in 7 players will get in the money. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less.
It's a good standard. On ACR, mostly it's 1 in 6 or 1 in 6.5. So if you start a tournament on ACR, there's a lot of them with 20,000 chips. Your general goal by the time you hit the cash, the expectation should be to have 6 or 7 extra stacks. So you're looking for 120, 140, somewhere in there, because that's going to be the average when you hit the cash. It's just a good thing to keep in mind in the back of your head, so you actually don't look at, oh, well, the chip average is 40,000 and I only have 30,000. That really doesn't matter because in one hand, you can double and have 60,000, and then you're heading towards that goal of the in the cash average. That's really what I base my progress through the tournament on. So if we're in the money and I have more than that, then fantastic. But if I have less than that, then I know that there's a little bit more heat and pressure I need to put on before we hit the cash and as we approach the bubble, because having that chip average in the cash just takes you to so many final tables. It's kind of my first goal in the tournament is to get to that point. And you can do the math very easily. If there's 100 people in the tournament and it's paying top 15, you just divide 100 by 15 and multiply it by the chips. That's all you got to do, and okay, that's what I'm looking for. And it's not like you ever go, I got there, so you back off, but understand that that's where your real comfort zone lies, is being in there, because you're going to be towards the top / middle of the pack. Even when there's 90 players left that are getting paid, if you have the chip average, you're going to be about 40th or 35th, somewhere in there. So you're going to be much better off than the majority of the field, even though that is the chip average. It's not the mean average. Going to be a final table day. I can feel it. Hope so. Haven't even fully decided to play yet today. I'm thinking I want to, but I kind of want to get a few things done first, and if it takes too much out of me, I might just play cash later. But yeah, I could definitely go for some tournament play today. I've been feeling generally good about it.
But it's about 1 in 7 players, and everyone else loses. Okay? So when you do get in the money, usually you're going to get back about 1.5 times your buy-in. So if you buy in for $100 and you cash for the minimum, so you barely get in the top 7th of the field, you'll get back about $150. Again, sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less, but it's going to be roughly that.
I also want to, alongside, look at I want to show you payout structures. So this is the Fat 20K on ACR. This is starting in about a half an hour. So let's check out these payout structures versus what I'm working with in the real world. So on a $20,000 prize pool, we're going to have $15 of every buy-in going to that prize pool. You're talking about 1,333 players. So go to this prize structure, and we're going to bring this up to 1,333 players. This is what it would take to get the guarantee. And you can see it's about 14, almost 15% for first place, and it's paying out top 198. So let me bring up another calculator. Let's go 1334 because we need a round number, divided by, 198. Why not? So we're looking at a minimum of 6.7. So that means 1 in 6.7 players will cash. If we go on the top end, which is 1368 divided by 198, it's almost 7. So about 1 in 7 players is the standard here. So in this tournament, the chips you're starting with is 35,000. Where did the 198 come from? That's the minimum payout. That's the bottom guy. See, this pays 181 to 198. If this thing gets 1,368 players and no more, it'll pay out 198 players. That's the bottom end. So we start this tournament with 35,000 chips. And if 1 in 7 players get paid, that means that the average when we hit the cash will be times 7 players. This is it. 245,000 chips. This is what you want. This is the in the money average. Now the fact of the matter is there's going to be a lot of players who cash with significantly less. And this thing is going to late reg for 4 hours because it's going through 15-minute levels for the first 15-minute levels for the first 16 levels. So that's right here. So when it ends, 4,000, 2,000, 4,000 will be the blinds. So if you have the in the cash average at that point, which very feasible, You then have 61 blinds. Usually when the average ends, I find that I end up more around 40, 45 blinds in standard tournament runs, and then things go from there. But the thing to remember is when you're looking at tournaments is how high the jumps are. Typically when you get to the end of late reg, somebody who just registered will have 10 big blinds, right? So the last level of late reg is level 16, 1750, 3500 big blinds are the blinds. You start out with 35,000 chips. That's 10 blinds. Now there's antes too, so you're not getting really 10 blinds. This plays more like 8. But once you hit 4,000, it's a huge jump. But can see from there, the jumps are very small: 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Then there's a jump to 10,000, but that's not for another hour and a half. It doesn't even get crazy until you go till 16,000, because it goes 10, 2, 4, 6. But then there's this 4K jump between 16 and 20K. So they're like missing a level here. And then there's a 5K jump at every point after that. Now, granted, you get to this point in the tournament, you're 27 levels in. You're probably approaching the final table. But it's good to keep these structures in mind for, like, what do I need to be okay? And I think in most tournaments, if I have 30 to 35 blinds in the deep stacks or in the deep levels, then I feel pretty damn confident. Honestly, 20 blinds is plenty. You get to these higher, averages, and when you have 20 blinds, at 30,000 chips, that's 600,000. I don't even know why I'm doing the math. 6 million chips if you're at 300,000, so it's 30,000. Duh. So 600,000, when you're getting to level 28, which you're talking about what are you? You're like 12 levels of 12-minute blinds. So you're like 6.5, almost 7 hours into this thing. So you're approaching the final table. I'd say probably around between levels 27 and 29, somewhere in here. Final table probably start you with about 20,000, 40,000 blinds. And having 20 blinds in the final table is not chump change. It's a pretty good stack. You're probably going to be 4th or 5th in chips most of the time. You can also figure it out by saying, well, let's see that guarantee takes 1,334 players times the 35,000. The total chips is 46.69 million. If we divide that by the final table of 9, then at the final table, you're going to want to have 5.2 million and change. You know what I'm saying? So in this tournament in particular, it's probably going to be about the 100,000 level when you hit the final table, which, knowing this stuff ahead of time will let you know what your time commitment is on a tournament. This is going to be a long one. Now, granted, the top prize in this thing is going to be about $3,000. And you say, well, that's not very much. But the truth of the matter is, it's a $15 buy-in. So you're talking about, what is that, 200 buy-ins? I mean, that's pretty awesome. Personally, this 35K starting stack with 4-hour late reg, I don't really like it. I think that it's a little bit too much for me on the late reg, because you have to hang around too much, and it takes too much life force for me to sit in here and grind through this. So what I'll do is, this will be one that I'll enter late, and I have no problem entering any tournament at 50 blinds. And that chops an hour off the registration time. So if I'm going to play this, I'm going to come in at 350, 700, even as late as that. Then I can chop an hour and a half off of this late reg, and I only have 2.5 hours to go. And it's not so bad, because I start out with 50 blinds, and then the blinds are slower paced. So in an hour, even if I do nothing, I'll still have 20 blinds, pretty much. So that's a lot of time online. I mean, that's like 60, 70 hands. You can probably make something happen in 60, 70 hands to where you're not struggling. And in all honesty, you can just play very snug early on and take only really good steal spots. And once you get doubled up to 70,000, then you're okay again till the next major jump, which would be, 13th place. Confirm, when I created a tournament structure spreadsheet calculating numbers, even though 10% got paid, the average stack was around 6 to 7 times starting stack. not 10 times starting stack as you were expecting. Exactly. It's because of the way that chips move after players are eliminated. Can you explain how you read through the cacophony of a tournament menu? How you read through the cacophony of a tournament menu. Oh, yeah. I want to go into that in just a second. Like, you're talking about, like, how I decide what tournaments to play. My general feeling is that the first thing that I'm looking for is when am I playing. So if I'm like how I feel right now, I think around 2:30 or 3 o'clock, I'd like to start playing. I'll start looking for my tent pole tournament, meaning that's the tournament that I'm going to enter on time when it starts. So a good example here, that here's one that starts at 3:30, and it's a bigger buy-in, and it's a 6 max, and I love this tournament a lot. This is a good tent pole for me to say, okay, do I reg ahead? Never. For one major reason. I don't want to, like, what if I pre-reg like 8 or 9 tournaments, right? And something happens, like the internet goes out. Like, it's, to me, that's silly to do. And I've heard great stories about really top level pros who figured out their schedule, registered everything the day before, and then there was a power outage, and they were trying to get in touch with, Poker Stars to get off of it, and they got on their phone and they sent emails, and they always ended up losing a bunch of buy-ins where you just didn't need to do that. I write my shit down. If I look ahead of time, like on Sundays, sometimes I'll look at the next day's schedule and go, oh, these are my major ones. I just write them down and write down their start times. I don't really see much reason to register ahead of time. Some people do that, like, obviously there's tournaments, like if you qualify for a tournament like the Venom or, something big like that, you're going to be pre-registered. Hey, Kesar, how you doing? Thanks for the cheers there. Honestly, those are the only times I'd ever be pre-registered in a tournament. And there has been a couple big tournaments that you win a ticket into it, and it's only for this event. So if you don't use the ticket, you lose the value. I'll still unregister it, because what if I oversleep? If I oversleep and my stack's not on the table, but then I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm good, I'm ready to go, and I'm showing up a half an hour late, I can then use that ticket and register and get a fresh stack. So I think it's pointless to pre-register. I've just never been that guy. What the fuck is the Venom? The Venom is the biggest tournament of the year on ACR. I think it paid over $1 million for first in its last iteration. It typically has like a $5 million guarantee. The buy-in is $2,650. It's one of the bigger online tournaments, one of the best paying online tournaments, I think, in the world. And you'll see like satellites for it all the time. There's a bunch of different ways to get into it. I'd like to satellite into it, but honestly, you have to consider when the good satellites are. And you can satellite in for $11, yes. It's very hard to do. There aren't many tournaments that run at because for satellites, personally, I like 20x. So if I'm playing a $10 satellite, typically it gets me into a $200 tournament, right? So $11 buy-in, $215 payout. You have to get 20x the chips. Those are pretty much, I mean, to me, those are very manageable, because I understand satellite structure and how to get through it. A lot of players don't like that. A lot of players prefer 10x. So, they're paying a 10, and I'll play these too, but a lot of players won't go further than that. So, you buy into an $11 tournament. If you win the satellite, you get a $110 entry. Well, that's great. But now you're talking about an entry of $2,650. So what they've done is they've stepped it because of the way players play, or the way players want to buy in. So there are satellites for $265 that you can play to get into the Venom. But then there's satellites into those that cost $55. And then there's satellites into those that cost, $15. And then there's satellites into those that cost $6. And it's just this stepping stone. And it's like, top 2 in this sit and go, get into the next stage. And it takes like 7 stages to get through. There's a lot of great satellites that they have of like, guaranteed 25 seats to the Venom. but they're $215 buy-in. Yeah. The full tilt disease. Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping around on here. What does the red D in the front of the tournament mean? Oh, that's a bullseye. That means a bounty. These are bounty tournaments. This is PKO, Progressive Knockout. It's not a D. It's a bullseye. These red ones are just, they're in late reg, and then it shows the starting times in green. Red has already started. Green hasn't started yet. But yeah, so that's basically how I look over it. So what I'll do is I'll pick something like this. This is my tent pole. If I play today and I feel really good, this is where I want to start. This 6 Max Turbo 3K guaranteed is super volatile. This is one where I cash it about 30% of the time. I cash it at a high rate, but it only goes one of two ways. I either min cash it or I win. That's the only results I've had in this fucking tournament. It's actually kind of hilarious where, oh, not the arrow, the bullseye. It's definitely a D in a red box. D in a red box. Not the arrow bullseye. It's definitely a D in a red box. I don't see it. I don't see any of them. Those are all bullseyes. Give me an example. If you're on your computer, look up one and give me an example. But I don't see any of them with a red D circled. I mean, I'll look through the other buy-in levels. Nah, I don't see any. I'll take the filters off and... Oh, what's that thing called? On demand. That might be what you're looking at. Let me see if I can find one. Any reason you play ACR over Party Poker? Yes, I'm in America. We cannot play on Party Poker. We cannot play on PokerStars. We can't play on many of those sites. My only real options are ACR, and since I'm in Nevada, I can play on WSOP.com, which is a shitty site, but this play is super soft. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it, but it's great for cash games. Tournaments are soft too, but the problem is the buy-ins are higher because it's always rebuy, re-entry, and all like that. But even in Nevada, I'm even further restricted because I can't play on Bodog or whatever it's fucking called now. They don't let you, if you're in Nevada, play on that. So I have to go out of the state to play on that. But there's places like New Jersey or New York where you can play on PokerStars America, which is just like 5 different states that are pooled together. Years ago, I went to Canada, and I did that specifically to play on PokerStars, Party Poker, and all those other sites that now the rest of the world plays on that Americans aren't allowed to play on anymore because of Black Friday. If you want to hear about that, just look up Black Friday Poker, and you'll hear about the tragedy. The on-demand tournaments, yeah, you remember the Black Friday, right? The on-demand tournaments are okay. Yeah, oh, when I was in Canada, yeah, those were amazing times. Pretty good. I don't think I was mature enough as a poker player to really do well. Not meaning that I couldn't play well enough, but I think I was still too susceptible to tilt. And I was playing a lot of times just to play. I wasn't really always focused. Didn't have a good study routine. Didn't study anywhere near enough. And was just going through way too much to really make the most of it. But still had some fairly okay results, but, didn't go as great as it should have gone. But, you live and you learn. The on-demands are okay. Their structures are usually a little bit faster pace. Usually it's as soon as 9 people register, we'll start this MTT or whatever the minimum is. And then they just allow people to keep registering for a half an hour. And, they pay off okay. I've played a few of them. They get to kind of shove territory pretty quick. So if you're not looking to sit there and stay in something all day. But top prize is usually 25 to 30x your buy-in, so pretty good. So back to this. Hang on. So this is the 3K 6 Max. Where's that thing? It started at 330. Where the hell is it? Yeah, starts at 330. So this is this one here. So what I would do is I'd say, okay, well, what plays near that I like? What's my absolute favorite tournament? Think about that one for a minute. It's very close to this 6 max. Right now, it's very close to that. I really like that tournament a lot. Even though it's very volatile, you get to make a lot of great moves because it is 6 max, and players play 6 max improperly. They play just with blind aggression, which is silly. So this is another tournament. This tournament starts a half an hour before this one, and it's a standard 20K. This is usually the format that I like. 20K starting chips, 8-minute blinds, 15-minute levels, or 15 levels. This to me is just about perfect for structure. These ones run off pretty good. And so I would like something like this. And it's like, okay, well, this starts a half an hour before this one. So then all you have to do is go and figure out, well, that's about 4 levels. So you'll come in like level 5, 320 big blind. So you're going to still come in with just a shit ton of blinds at 20,000. I mean, if you want to see it exact, it's like 60-something blinds, right? So what is it? 20,000 divided by 320. You come in with like 62 blinds when you register this. So for me, if I'm going to play the 6 max, I should definitely be playing this one here, because when I register this one right on time, this one's still very profitable for me to enter because I have enough blinds. Now we get into a little bit further back. This is a 2K guarantee, same structure, but now it starts an hour before the 6 max. So I'm going to be missing the first hour of this one. At 12-minute blinds, that means I missed the first 5 levels. I come in at 150, 300. The structure's actually better on this in the early moments. So this one I would add to the roster as well. And I'll just keep doing that and going back further and further until I get to the point where it's like, okay, when I register, it's not going to be profitable anymore because I'm going to be registering at 330. So I got the 1500. I could play this one. This structure is a little different. I don't really love this tournament, so I'm actually just going to take it off. Then we go back to the fat 1500. So this one, remember the tent pole is this 6 max. This starts at 330, okay? This one starts at 210. So I'm going to miss the first hour and 20 minutes of this tournament registering it. It has that same 20K starting chips. We're going to miss an hour and 20 minutes, though. So you're talking the first hour is what? That's 8, 9, 10. So we're going to come in at about level 11 right here, which is okay. It's not great, but it's okay because the blinds are going to be 300, 600 with an ante. So, yeah. So we're going to come in with 33 blinds. This still is okay, and because the buy-in is smaller, it's only a $6 buy-in, and the prize pool is bigger, 2,500. It's only going to be about 420 players or so to get this guarantee. The prize structure is going to pay out pretty good. It's going to be right in here. It's going to pay about $400 and maybe $500 for first, paying out top 63. To me, this is the bottom line. This is the one I don't want to go any further than, because 30 big blinds is enough, but it's not going to stay at 30 for very long. So we're going to go 600 to 700 to 800 to 900. Basically, if I don't make anything by 1,000, which gives me about 45 minutes or so, 40, 45 minutes to make something happen, then it's going to start getting very expensive very quickly. And I want to be able to, like, you know, and these are things when I'm entering this tournament with 33 blinds, there's going to be a little bit more gambling much sooner. Like, you'll see me change the color of the felt when I get to like 25 blinds. You know, I'll be changing it to that, you know, pink color so that I know I need to get the money in quicker, because it's the amount of profitable entries I can make rather than entries into tournaments where I just start with a shitload of blinds. It's profitable for me to enter this thing with 33 blinds because honestly, one double and you're definitely cruising. And starting that late, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to double. You give up a little bit of edge because of missing the first part, but I get to play all this volume of, right now there are 5 tournaments that I can start at one time, and that's perfect. And if I'm playing a full schedule, here, I'll close the late reg ones. This is the other part of it. So those are all the late reg ones, right? So I have 5 of them on that end, right? And these would be the main core, these two. So then the other way I can think about it is, well, while I'm in these tournaments, what starts after? So here's the Turbo 6 Max. And the Boski starts at the same time. I don't really like the Boski. The structure's not great, so I like to show up late to this one. So I probably would just skip that because it would be too much of a time investment versus the likelihood of a good payout. But at 4 o'clock, a half an hour after this starts, there's a 2500, 660 here. Same format, same structure as the fat 2500 that I'm late registering, that much 2 hours. It's already going to be like an hour and 15 minutes in when I register it. One with the exact same structure is starting a half an hour after I register the 6 Max. So that one's on the table. There's this 2500 that starts at 4 p.m. It's got a little bit of a bad structure. But at 4:45, there's a 5K guaranteed bigger buy-in with the same structure. So you can see this is how I build the day. And it's just like, if I'm trying to keep, what I'll do is I'll give myself options. Normally, like if I wasn't streaming, it would be like 6 to 8 tables. But while I'm streaming, it's going to be about 5. So I'm trying to keep 5 slots open on the computer as long as I can to have 5 games up here as long as possible. Now, if it becomes unprofitable to keep re-entering, like if we get to a point where I'm at less than 30 blinds when I'm re-entering a tournament, well, then that slot closes. But then you just look at what's left to register, and then you just fill it with that one. Do you ever think of staggering start times to break up late-stage final tables so you can focus on those more? Yeah. Basically, that's what I do. So I don't like to register things too far after I begin because I prefer to have all my tournaments starting at once. So because it's like it's very hard to start out with just 2 tournaments and then a half an hour later you register another, and a half an hour later you register another, and a half an hour later, because then by the time these things are near the final table, you have other ones that are still in late reg. That I don't like. You know what I'm saying? Like, that to me is the worst, because what happens is, and I've had it happen many times, where you end up winning the tournament, let's say. How much do you give a shit at that point? Like, you're kind of flying high, and so I like my tournaments to stay in similar stages throughout. So if I'm late regging, it's a little bit more attention I can give to them, while these tournaments are in the slow early stages. So I'll put the late reg ones on the top of the screen versus, the other, early starting ones where you have 200 blinds. When we start this thing, 10,000 chips, the first level, you're starting out with, what is this? 150 big blind. I mean, it's a 6 max, so it's an aggressive structure. But even at that, you're starting out with 66 blinds. And the structure is good, and it's a turbo, so it goes up very quickly. But you don't have to pay that much attention, because look, it goes to 150, 160, 70, 80, 90, 200. Like, these jumps are 10 chip jumps. These are very small. It doesn't even get significant until you're 16 levels in. So you have a ton of time in this. That's why this tournament is profitable, is because people freak out and they don't realize exactly how much time you have. No, it's okay, man. Yeah, but here's the main thing is, and Cordy B was talking about this the other day, where she's got to enjoy what she's playing. Like, she knows she's a winning player playing the spins, the three-handed, tournaments where you spin in and, you see what your prize pool will be. She's probably one of the best at that format, at the $100 buy-in level. That's out there. I mean, screw saying best female or what. She's just one of the best. So for her, that's very profitable, and she loves that format. So there'll be great tournaments going on, and I've seen her on stream go, this tournament's awesome, this structure's awesome, this is in my buy-in range, this is what I want to do. And then you'll see her go, yeah, I don't feel like it though. Like, and she's right, because you have to really be invested in what you're playing to give a shit. Like, that's the other consideration too, is that if the buy-in, like, and I'm playing on a very hamstrung bankroll right now, and there are tournaments like this. Like this tournament used to be a 2,500 guaranteed with a 275 entry. That was great not only for rake and buy-in purposes, but also for the potential payout because it paid off about $500. Now, this tournament's much smaller because they've just lowered the guarantee. So top prize is only 385, right? Doesn't seem like much, but it's a 20% reduction in the prize pool. And when I'm playing these, the best thing to look at are the top payout, 385, and the min cash, because that's pretty much where you live. You kind of live in the top 3 spots of payout versus the min cash, because sometimes you have to crawl your way into the money, and that's fine. But when you min cash, what do you get back? Well, in this particular instance, you get back 3 times your buy-in. Now, granted, you may put in multiple buy-ins, but that's a pretty damn good payout. That's an aggressive payout structure because you're getting 3x your buy-in when you cash, almost 4x. And when you win, you're still winning like 150 buy-ins at this level. Now, my average buy-in is about $10. So for me, this top prize is about 38 buy-ins, which is good. That's a good solid day. It'll cover all my play for the day and make me probably $300, which is awesome. And it just goes right back to the bankroll. So these are little bankroll builders. So this tournament is still profitable. Now, if this guarantee went down to 1,000, it would no longer be profitable. The time investment wouldn't be worth the payout if I win it in a best case scenario. And you got to realize 99% of the time, you're not going to get the best case scenario. You're going to get a no cash or lesser cash than first place. Like this one, you have to look at structures like this. This is a 1,500 guarantee, but the buy-in's a little higher. So the thing to remember is the structure of payout. So it's going to take 500 players to get this guarantee, and the payout's going to be $281 for first. On a $3 buy-in, that's pretty damn good. That's about 90 buy-ins to this tournament, and your min cash is only 2x. So this one, the payout structure isn't aggressive, but you're going to cash it more often. So you have to consider all these things and just decide what do you want to do. Now for me, because I am Qui-Gon broke and I'm trying to rebuild, I have to play at a wide buy-in range. So my buy-ins range anywhere from $2.75, that's the lowest one I'll play, all the way up to $33. Now there aren't many 33s I'll play a week. Usually my highest buy-in of the day is about $16. But that's how I do it, is to manage my buy-ins, to have proper bankroll management. Too much of a cheap ass, so tourney cost almost always only a single buy-in. Here's the thing. If you bought into the tournament and it was profitable for you to buy in, if you think in this format you're a winning player, right, to win this tournament a fair amount more than the field, this is the thing to consider. All you got to do is ask yourself, how many blinds do I need for that to be true? So if you enter a tournament, here, we'll go by the 6 max, right? This is the 6 max, right? I know I'm profitable in this format. With this structure and this payout, I know I'm profitable, okay? When we start out, we're going to start with 66 blinds. That's what the first level pays us at, okay? Now, if we go along for a while, we have 10,000 chips. We go for along for a while, and then we get aces here at the 100, 200 level, get all the money in, and get cracked, right? And get busted out of the tournament, right? And now it's like, shit, it's over. If I re-enter it right at that point, I have 50 blinds. Am I still profitable at 50 blinds? I think so. In this format, hell yeah. But then if we go further, and we're at level 14, and that happens again with the aces and I get cracked, now when I buy in again, I'm only getting 25 blinds. And that to me is getting to the point where now we're just gambling too much. I typically don't enter tournaments where I end up with less than 40 blinds at the start when I register. But there are a few that are worth it for like that fat 2,500 that's going to start an hour and 20 minutes before I start playing. It's worth it to me for 2 reasons. One, I'm only going to throw 1 entry into that because unless I get cracked the very first hand, because I'm only going to get 33 blinds. So by the time the blinds go up a few levels, re-entering would only give me 25 blinds or so. It's not really profitable because you're not going to have enough time to make anything happen. That being said, I have no problem entering that tournament because I feel like the majority of the time I'm going to be able to make a run in it based on its structure and the number of blinds I'm getting. If you're only entering a tournament once, you're in this format with ACR, you're giving up a huge edge to the worst players. If you're a profitable winning player, you're the one who makes money, right? So every tournament buy-in I take, I have a certain expected ROI. So that, return on investment. So that means the more buy-ins I can take, maintaining that ROI, the more money I make intrinsically. So if I can do 100 buy-ins in a week, and let's say I have a, 20% return on investment, right? That means I pick up 20 buy-ins a week by having 100 entries, as long as they're profitable entries and I'm not gambling. Like, you'll see people towards the end of late reg entering with 10 blinds. That's gambling. I don't give a fuck what the format is. That's gambling because everybody else has such an advantage. Now, if you started a tournament and hand one, everybody had 10 blinds, it's a little less gambling, but it's still very gambling. But those tournaments play different. And there are some like that out there, believe it or not. So if you're going to play a tournament, when you bust out, just look at it and go, oh, all right, that event is over. That tournament is in the past. This doesn't mean anything. How many blinds do I get to re-enter? Oh, I get like 50. That's cool. Bang. And you just re-enter it right there. It's a brand new tournament. I only have one superstition that I kind of hold on to. I don't enter a tournament more than 3 times. It's probably purely superstition. And it usually happens when I've had big hands cracked. And you've gotten way too I can get way too frustrated putting 4 buy-ins into a tournament where I know that I can't get my money back on that event unless I go super deep. If I put 4 buy-ins into this, we're talking $66. And what did I say? How many get paid in this fucking thing? 3,000. So it's a 200-person structure. So at 200 players with $66, I'm going to have to come in. I'm going to have to final table prize, like 9th place, to get almost all of my money back. To me, it's too much depression and life force to give up to have that happen. So I'll walk away from it. After, I'll put in 3 buy-ins if the structures are still good. But I've had a couple of them where I've busted them so quick that I've had 3 buy-ins into them and I could re-enter with 80 blinds. And I'm just like, fuck this tournament. Like, just because it's too much of a mental mountain to get over. Like, you know all the logic, you know all the math, you know all the statistics. And then at the end of the day, you sit there and going, I've just gotten unlucky in this tournament. There might be something to that. And what it really does is it keeps me from going off apeshit, on a tournament and just throwing buy-ins away when I could possibly tilt. You know what I'm saying? Small buy-in tournaments like that 275, I've put buy-ins into it I shouldn't have, but there's a concession. The prize pool's lower, but the buy-in is lower. So you can gamble a little more. And there is some gambling. It's not poker isn't gambling, but there is some gambling to it, because you're going to have to get lucky. No matter how good you play, you have to get lucky to win tournaments. Even if that's just your aces holding versus another guy's kings. That's lucky. It's 80%, but you could still get cracked for, 1 in 5 times. And if that happens at the wrong time of the tournament, you can just go fuck yourself, and the best player in the world just got booted to the rail. It's just going to happen. Let's try and get through this section here.
So, let's say you play a 500-person tournament with a $100 buy-in. In this scenario, 75th place will usually be about $150, whereas first place, if you win the whole tournament, may pay $10,000. So while cashing is certainly relevant, it is much more important that you give yourself a strategy that gives yourself a chance to win the tournament. What a lot of people do, though, is that they instead will really prioritize getting in the money, getting a cash. They think cashing is a huge victory. Whereas in reality, turning your $100 into $150 isn't that big of a deal, but turning your $100 into $10,000 is quite substantial. I mean, take a look at this payout structure I have right here. You'll see that in this tournament, 9th place pays $90, whereas first place pays $1,500. That's 16 times the amount once you make it to the final table for ninth place, going all the way up to first. So like even there, you're still pretty highly incentivized to try to get a hold of chips and win the tournament, because there's a big difference between cashing for $90 compared to $1,500. And you're going to find that a lot of the best tournament players in the world, they cash about as often as any other player would, maybe slightly more, but they take first, second, or third place way more often than all the other players. I mean, look back here, right? You see a load of trophies. They don't give you a trophy for second place, right? They give you trophies for winning, and you make lots and lots of money by winning the tournaments.
See, and that's the thing that people don't realize. Like, I know it's very common knowledge now, but there's a fine line where a lot of tournaments, you'd rather take the chance to advance quickly and make a real shot in it. And that's why you see that's why you'll see me when I'm playing sitting there going, okay, this is a race. At this point in the tournament, I don't feel it's worth racing, so I'll fold the ace-king. There's a lot of examples of that. But then at other points, I'm racing it for 40 blinds, versus a 4-bet all-in, because I know that it's a race, and it's like, okay, now if I take the shot and win it, I've got a really good shot to make top, final table in this tournament and advance me in my pay. And if I lose, it's fine, because I gave myself the best chance to win. And sometimes you have to flip a coin for that opportunity. Jonathan Little is maybe the one poker player that uses his notebook at the table. It's true. You'll see that a lot. Him and, who used to do that too? I actually got to see it up close and personal while I was dealing a tournament at the Venetian, was David Skolansky. It shouldn't surprise anybody, but even, this is 2006, so I don't know how old he was. But even at that age, he still had his little piece of paper. It wasn't like a notebook. It was like a folded piece of paper. I think it was the tournament structure sheet. And he had it folded, 15 different ways, and he would write hands through different levels. He had this whole code thing. So when you looked, he was right next to me. So when I looked at it, it didn't look like, JH for Jack of Hearts. It was like a star and like a triangle. Yeah, Gus Hansen did it too. Gus Hansen used to do it actually with a tape recorder. If you read Every Hand Revealed, the one where he wins that tournament and he talks about every hand he played, he actually did it with a little mini tape recorder that he would play the hand, and then he would kind of like this, taking notes the whole way. Now you see guys doing it on their phone. If you don't notice it, there's a lot of guys now who make notes on their phone and shit. That's a really great book. That book directly influenced me winning a tournament. I literally finished that book in a day. I read it. It took me about 5 hours. It was really exciting. I walked away. I remember I went to the gym. I came back and reread the second half of the book. That was my whole day. The next day I got up and I won a tournament. It just put me in such the mindset. It was a really great thing, and I actually reread it a few times. Skolansky has nothing on Jonathan Little, but he still does more than most. Yeah, you got to remember, Skolansky was one of the first ones, and people shit talk Skolansky, but he figured out the math in the 70s, man. Like, he was ahead of his time. I think the reason why Skolansky doesn't have more titles is because he was more fascinated by learning than he was driven by winning. So I think he became more of a teacher than anything. Jonathan Little seems to have that same teacher's mentality, and to improve his own play so he can win more. I mean, the guy just fucking wins boats. Like, and nobody fucking, and it's like, if you talk to the average poker player, they have no fucking idea who this guy is, and he's fucking insanely stacked with his wins. It's crazy.
By making very deep runs as opposed to collecting min cashes. I mean, I know personally I don't cash much more than any other player. I cash maybe 16, 17, 18% of the time, something like that, depending on the structure, and that's just not the main metric you need to be concerned with. So realize that since you will only have a big score whenever you take one of the top few places, you should expect to have a lot of swings to your bankroll. And if you're an average player, let's just do some quick math. If you play 1,000-person tournaments, you'll make the top 10 1 out of 100 times that you play, right? And you're going to win 1 out of 1,000 times that you play. You're going to take the top 3 out of 1,000 times. Realize that doesn't happen all that often. 3 out of 1,000 is not very often. So you need to play a lot of games and realize and understand and accept that there's going to be a lot of variance, like swings, in poker tournaments. But if you make profitable decisions, you will profit in the long run. Let's take a look at this graph right here. This is a graph of a solid winning player. You see, they start off just immediately losing $5,000, right? Pretty much straight down. And then they have a big score. This is when they get one of their 1 in 1,000 hits, or 3 in 1,000 hits. Then they kind of break even for a while, have a little score, trickle down for a while, have a little score, trickle down for a while, have a little score, right? And you see that happens over and over. But this player is actually highly profitable in the long run. Notice this is 600 tournaments, which is not even all that long of a time period. But if you look at this, they only have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 actual decent scores over the course of 600 tournaments.
And the thing to remember is that's running very hot. If you win 10 out of 600 tournaments, we're talking about online, of course. If you win 10 out of 600 fucking tournaments, that's insanely fire hot. That's like, you cannot expect to do that forever. That is Fedor Holtz on a run levels of fire. Like, this is an insane run that we're looking at. This is not an average thing. But it is realistic, to think about how often you break even. I always say that for me, 80% of days are break even plus or minus 2 buy-ins. So it's like, if my buy-in is $10 on average, my average day, I'm either winning or losing $20. That's pretty much it. And we can go through all these that I did on stream, and we can go through, let's see here. Where does it start? All right, I had a good day plus $120. And then, where is it? There's a lot of notes here. Minus $4.93. Plus $12.83. Minus $40. Minus $2. Plus $25. Plus $72. And it's just like over and over. And that's not even all the notebooks. I have those things filled. And I literally just keep them around, to remind me of what the reality is. Plus 2, minus 285, minus 75, minus 22, plus 1250. What was that one? That one was a big score. Plus 750, minus 22. Minus 1705. Minus... Oh, there's nothing there. Plus 825. So it's like you just break even 80% of the time because of the business you're in. 10% of the time you get housed. 2 days ago on the 26th, I got housed. I had a downswing day, probably my biggest downswing since starting the stream. It was $120. And if you saw that one, it's titled in the VODs, putting the GUR in grind. I lost like $125. It was something like 14 buy-ins or something like that. Something like that. 12 or 14 buy-ins over there. 12 or 14 buy-ins. And I just could not get anything to catch. I just lost every race. You know what I'm saying? I got bad beat a few times. I just... Ace King versus Ace Queen, lost that, and it just fucking happened, and it actually really upset me. And then I had to think about it for a while as to why that was, and it was because it was the biggest loss I'd taken on stream since I'd been back. But I've only been back at it for like 45 days. It's not even reasonable for me to have a win yet, and I already have 3 or 4 final tables that I've captured on stream. That's pretty good, you know what I'm saying? And I'm still right about even, give or take a few hundred from where I started when I came back to streaming. So you got to realize most of the time you're going to lose. 10% of the time you're going to take that loss. Another, I'd say 5% of the time at the top end, you're going to make a significant portion, maybe 10 buy-ins, $120, $130 for me. And then that top 5%, I'm going to make 300 buy-ins. I'm going to make, $1,000, $1,500, things like that. And those scores are very few and far between, and you have to have that realistic expectation. I don't care how good you are. The best poker players in the world have these results. You cannot outrun it. It is math. You can't expect to win everything. It's just ridiculous. How's it going? You playing tonight? I'm really considering it because I'm feeling very good about playing tonight. I don't know if I'm going to go to the gym before or after I play. It'll probably be after. But I think after I get done with this, which I want to get through this section here, after I get done with this, I'm probably going to eat lunch, have a B12, and see how I feel. But I really feel like playing, and I think that tentpole event has really got me motivated because they don't have this tournament all the time. This Turbo 6 Max 3K. I really love this tournament. It starts in about 2.5 hours. So a little bit of a late start, but Courtney's going to be working all day, so I'll have the place to myself. And I tend to focus up well when that's the case. So, yeah, I'm like 90% sure I'm going to play at about 3:30. I'm going to start. So 90% sure. I'd say unless I start to not feel really good or I need a nap or something. But maybe I'll just get a little sleep before, get another little nap before I start. But yeah, I think I'm playing tonight. Let's see if we can get through this. You gonna TID to do TID? What's that? Oh, take it down? Yeah, I'm gonna try. Hopefully today's one of those top 5% days. Honestly, it doesn't matter because I'm gonna live long enough to see the results. That's really the goal of a poker player. Play as best you can and live long enough to get rich. You know, if our lifespans were 200 years, I would say it's a lock. You know what I'm saying? If I could have 150 years of prime poker play, yeah, that's no problem. I wouldn't even be sweating it. But because, your life runs out, you have to kind of budget your time well.
That's 1 in 60. Realize if you're playing live poker tournaments, as I know a lot of you will be doing, and you play one tournament a week, that means you're going to have one substantial score every year, roughly, right? Obviously, if you're playing smaller events with smaller fields with fewer people, you're going to have significant cashes more often, but they'll be for smaller amounts. And if you're playing 10,000 person tournaments, you're very rarely going to have a big score, but when you do, it's going to be for a gigantic amount, right?
It's a good thing to remember. And this is another tournament philosophy that people forget. So he's talking about playing 1,000-player tournaments, right? So you put in $10, the prize pool's $10,000. How often can you expect to win it? Well, by math, you can expect to win it if you're an above-average player 1 in 1,000 times. That's what it is. Now, your skill, your advantage comes up. So if I was to play 1,000 of them, I would expect to win, probably like he's saying, probably like 10 of them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to be about 1% of the time, which is great. And you say, well, how is that possible? Because isn't that the true that everybody can do that? No. Dan Harrington summed it up beautifully when he talked about the World Series of Poker main event. He said, here's the thing. There's 5,000 people in this tournament. And there's 10,000 tickets in a lottery. Everybody, when they sign up, they get a ticket. Okay? Then, based on your skill and ability and experience, you get more tickets. So he says somebody like me, he's like, I might have 10 tickets to win the lottery. Whereas somebody who doesn't have my experience might only have 1 ticket. And he says, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of people in this tournament that only have half a ticket. So, so that's the way you got to look at it, is that you're putting yourself in a position to get lucky and have more tickets to win the lottery. Best play you can and don't fuck it up. That's solid advice. That's one way to think about it, but Qui-Gon just wins, baby. I try. I'm much more realistic now with my expectation of myself. I'm still very hard on myself, but now I used to just beat myself up and feel like a fucking loser when I didn't win. It didn't matter if I played well or whatever. Gonna be back for the late stream. Good luck today. Thanks, Eric, man. I'll see you later. Yeah, it'll be about 3:30 Vegas. Well, you're in Vegas, you know. I used to really like beat myself up, but I'd have nowhere to go with it, so I would just kind of either tilt or I'd go to play cash games and try to make myself feel better and like get some easy wins and you know kind of placating my ego and my confidence. Now, if I don't play well, I recognize it, I work on the spots, I figure out the math, I solve the problem, and the tilt immediately leaves me. There's nothing there because it's like, oh, well, I won't do that again. Oh, well, that's easy. I just whatever. It becomes a much more well-rounded way to look at it. And if I played well, there have been many times just in the past year where I've gone, man, I played great today. And if somebody was to say, how much did you win? You go, no, I lost everything. It just doesn't matter, but I can still feel good about it because I made the right decisions. Are you going to feel bad about getting it all in with aces, versus kings and losing? You can't feel bad about that. You can kind of later, there are times when I go, oh, that sucks, but it's not my fault, so I don't feel bad about myself. So it's a good way to manage tilt is if you recognize mistakes, or even if you don't know if you made mistakes, go back and look at it, run the numbers, use Equilab, use Poker Tracker, use all the tools, and figure out, you know what, I fucked that up there. And if you can find the mistake, you'll actually feel better about yourself, and you won't tilt. You can actually go back the next day and be like, fresh start, man, and I'm not going to make that mistake, and that's how you get better.
So let's take a look at a simulation that I ran where we have 10 1.
Sounds good, Nike. I should be back at 3:30 Vegas time. That's about 2.5 hours, wherever you are.
100 game samples. Okay, so this is 10 times we are playing 100 games, where each game is a 1,000-person tournament, and we're going to have a 50% return on investment, your ROI. This tells you how much you're winning every time you play a tournament. Your return on investment is calculated by the amount you cashed for over some period of time, minus the amount you invested in those tournaments, divided by the amount invested. So, for example, suppose you play 100 $110 buy-in tournaments and you cash for $20,000. Your ROI would be $20,000. That's the amount you cash for, right? Minus $11,000, which is 100 times 110. That's how much you bought in for, divided by how much you bought in for, and that equals 0.81, which is 81% return on investment. Okay? You're going to find that when you're playing online poker, something like a 30% to 50% return on investment is very good. Live, you can have higher return on investments because, again, people typically play worse in live poker.
Also, higher return on investment because if you are a winning player, because players play worse, you're also going to have less volume live because it just takes longer. I could play 100 tournaments a week online. It would literally take me to play 100 tournaments live. Let's say I doubled up some and just counted like double entries and shit like that. It would probably take me 3 to 4 months. 3 months of going out 5 days a week to play 100 fucking tournaments live. I can do that in a week very easily. And actually, playing 100 tournaments a week is not enough volume for online. I should be playing more, but because of the stream and because of the YouTube and because of everything else, I'm trying to keep it at 100 or so buy-ins a week. Are you going to play the Boski Special? I don't really like the Boski tournament, and I'm going to show you why. It used to be a 15K guarantee, which is an awesome score, right? And I know 12K is still an awesome score, but we got to look at the structures here. That's 1,200 players, right? So the top prize now is going to be 18.5, which is good. Don't get me wrong. That's 180 buy-ins. That's pretty awesome. Min cash is almost double. It's like a buy-in and a third. But this tournament, because of its structure, these are 12-minute blinds and 15 levels of late reg. This is a long, slow structure. For me to play this one, I usually have to enter it late. And because of the structure, you can't enter it too late. So I can enter about level 5 and feel very comfortable. But once you get to level 8, you're kind of gambling. So I don't really love this tournament. I did play it this past Sunday just because it fit into my schedule so perfectly. But if you'll notice, on Sunday, the guarantee went up to 15K. It's much more profitable. Totally right. What I learned about tilt is when I used to get tilted was mostly when I didn't understand the poker spot I'm in. Right. If you don't know what you're doing and how to respond in the spots, that's where tilt gets you. Yeah. tilt for me now isn't just losing money or whatever like that. Like life tilt is different, but playing poker, now I'm sitting there willing to say there is a chance, and this is the part that's going to break your brain is what he's talking about right now. This is 10 different people's examples, right? He ran this through a simulator. So this is like every one of these lines represents a person's results, okay? So there's 10 of them playing 100 game samples in 1,000-person tournaments with a 50% return on investment. Okay, so somewhere between online and live. Online, like he said, 20 to 30% be pretty good. Live, 50 plus would be good because, better return on investment, worse players, and such. Check out what he says here.
So anyway, here's a sample of 100 games in 1,000-person events with a 50% return on investment, all right? And you see here, over 100 games, if we ran this 10 times, you see that the player's actually down roughly 5 out of 10 times, even with a solid win rate. And that should be kind of eye-opening to some of you because realize that, let's say you do play one tournament a week, right? Each line here represents 2 years of play. That means you can very easily play 2 years and be down. And if you happen to hit 2 or 3 of these bad ones in a row, you can play 6 years and be down despite having a big win rate, which is why actually playing and putting in volume, playing games is very relevant because that's going to allow you to get to the long run faster. Because you see, in the long run, we actually win a decent amount of money. You'll notice again that this really big outlier here ends up winning a whole pile of money, and it's because he has substantial scores, right? A bunch of scores here. It's kind of hard to see. But there's he was actually down for 75 tournaments, but then had 2 or 3 very big scores right here at the end. And that happens, right? You don't get to pick when you win, so you want to make sure that you are putting in a lot of volume and you're playing with an edge on a regular basis. I just want you to understand that you have to embrace and accept that you're going to have swings, and don't get sad or depressed or unhappy when you inevitably have them, because you will. You will have big upswings and big downswings. I've had multiple 40 tournament in a row stretches with 0 cashes, but again, cashing is not the most important metric. Turns out right after both of those, I had a big win for like $1 million, so that was lucky. But
see what he just said right there? 40 game downswing and no cashes. Not the cashes is the metric. Coincidentally, right after that, I had 2 big wins for about $1 million each. That was lucky. The proper mindset of you can expect these downswings to happen is fine, but winning the tournament, you have to always acknowledge you got lucky. Nobody wins a tournament without getting lucky. You got to get lucky at some point, and it's just how you define luck. Luck isn't having ace king getting it in versus pocket aces and cracking them. That's not luck you can ever count on. You can count on the luck of getting in with ace king versus ace queen and your ace king holding. That's the luck you can count on. That's where you have to get lucky.
I'm leaving.
Oh, okay. All right. Have a good day, babe. You got the key?
You didn't go anywhere, did you?
I don't think so.
So it should still be on my thing.
Okay. I'll see you later. Keep me posted.
Will do.
All right.
I have to come back here to meet a client at 6, so hopefully I'm done in time.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, you should make it. Plenty of time.
Yeah, this girl's all the way, all my clients are on north.
This one's a good one, though, to branch out on. She's going to tell all her friends.
Yeah, and I didn't charge her the travel fee. I took it off.
Smart. All right. Have fun. You got cards?
Yeah.
All right.
I've also had periods where I've won just like huge amounts of money in back-to-back-to-back stretches. I won the Player of the Year trophy, that one right there, where I had a great year. And then the year right after that was also pretty great. And then I had a year or two that was not so great. That happens. That is part of poker tournaments, and you have to accept it, and you have to stay sane and realize that if you continuously play your best, you will profit in the long run.
Okay.
You just have to have the discipline and the drive and the willingness to get to the long run. So now realize that most tournaments feature a big blind ante. So we are going to be using that ante structure throughout this masterclass.
He's talking about live tournaments, and I did send an email about this to Jonathan Little back in the day, and he actually himself responded through the site saying that because I was asking about tournament masterclass, And he said that all poker is poker, which we've accepted that, online or live, that's fine. It's just a difference in skill. But he went with the big blind ante thing because he believed that most people who are going to be going through this course for the first time are going to be live-based players, and they're going to understand it better if we're talking about that format. He said it really makes no difference in the math versus every player antes in an online tournament every hand instead of just holding on to it and then anteing in the big blind. So this is important stuff to remember, and a big blind ante is a great factor, but it doesn't factor into the math because, yes, when you're in the big blind, if you win your big blinds every time, you will be doing 10 times better than the other players, but you can't make that influence your decisions because it's an ante. It's just in the middle. It's not part of your blind. You're not defending your blind and ante. You're defending your blind. That's it. So he said you just got to disregard it when you're in the blind and still make the decisions you make based on your odds in the blind. Now, the ante comes into that when you add it to it, but it's not like you're trying to win your big blind every time. You're going to have to let it go. So he was very nice to respond to that, and it made a lot of sense. I need to win 1 million. Yeah, you and me both, brother. And nowadays, 1 million's not that much money. If I had $1 million score, I've done this math out a lot. It's kind of my vision board thing. I've thought about, well, if I satellite it into the Venom and I won it for $1 million, what would I do with it? And I took out taxes and I figured it all out. And I said, okay, well, that means I can play this much in tournaments as a free roll because I can write off losses against it. So what would I do with that? Okay, cool. Then I would do this, that, and this. And then I would get a house. And then I would blah, 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 blah. And I'd have a bankroll of, somewhere around 100,000 and da-da-da-da. And that would give me about, playing at the stakes I'd like to play, it would give me about, and I figured out it was usually between 3 and 5 years before I needed another score to go broke. And that's without investments, right? That's just regular shit. So $1 million isn't that much anymore, although hitting that first one is kind of a big deal. There's a great story that Jason Somerville used to tell about when he won his first $1 million. It was some big tournament, and he was already a winning player, online, but he played some tournament live, and he won it. And Daniel Negreanu, and this is back in like '08, Daniel Negreanu comes up to him and says, congratulations, that's amazing, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you're a young kid. And he says, he starts talking to him, and he goes, so, is this your first million? And he goes, yeah, it's my first $1 million, and all like that. That's pretty awesome. And he goes, it is awesome. You'll be broke in a year. And then he walked away from him. and Negreanu knew, he knew what was going to happen. And if you hear Somerville tell this story, he'll tell you that Daniel Negreanu was completely and utterly wrong. It only took 10 months to go broke from $1 million. And this is in '08 when that was, more money significantly. And he said that, not understanding bankroll at the time and what real world expenses are, which is what happens when you're a fucking 24-year-old kid who wins $1 million, you're going to lose the first $1 million. Now, luckily he was a good player and he learned his lesson, and he's now, very well off. But it was an important lesson for him, and I always remember that story when people talk about winning $1 million, and it's just like, yeah, it's better for me to win $1 million now than it would have been back in my early 20s,
And whenever you're playing with the big blind ante, the big blind puts in some amount of money into the pot that is equal to the big blind. And that money is dead, meaning that it just goes into the pot, it's there, and the players at the table get to fight for it. This is essentially the same as a traditional ante where everyone puts in, 0.15 big blinds, but it saves a ton of time. So realize that the dead money in the pot is very relevant and it matters. And that's going to impact a lot of the decisions that you make at the poker table, as we will see throughout this masterclass. So this is the ante structure we will be using. Every hand in this course assumes there is a big blind ante. I realize in some tournaments they may not have an ante, they may have a traditional ante, but traditional antes and big blind antes don't really matter, so don't get too caught up on that. All right, let's continue moving forward.
Yeah, you just consider the big blind ante as dead money. So even though you may have paid the big blind this time, and it actually works out better for the players because at blind levels of 200, 400, you can't ante 40 chips, in a live tournament because the lowest denomination is 25. So they're going to make the ante a half blind. They're going to make it 50. So everybody be anteing 50 every time. Over 9 hands at a 9-handed table, that's 450 chips that you had to ante. But in a 200, 400 structure with a big blind ante, you put out the big blind for 400 and you ante for 400. Divided by 9, that's, well, I can't do the math. My head's too fucking stupid with the numbers right now. So, 400 for an ante divided by 9 means now every player at the table anteed 44.4 chips. You can't do that, but it actually is more efficient, and for the dealer, make sure nobody misses an ante, and it costs you less to ante. So the blind structure just increased by 10% because of this. So you just got 10% more time to make your moves. So if you see big blind ante, you want to play those. They're better for you. So we'll I guess he's got I don't know if this is a quiz or this is the next section. Let's see here. Oh, it is a quiz. Okay. True or false? If you have a solid win rate, you will have a positive result after 25 tournaments. If you learn nothing from this, you cannot guarantee a positive win rate over any amount other than the long run, which is roughly 1,000 plus tournaments. I honestly think it's about 3,000. So I'm going to go false. This is correct. There's so much variance in poker, you can be a clear winner with a 50% ROI and still lose over hundreds of tournaments. Understand the game you are signing up for. Very important lesson. True or false? First place in a tournament is usually 30% of the prize pool or less. That is true. Most structures play a first place of 30%, prize pool or less. That's usually live. Online, it's about 15%. But again, the concession is time. We can play a tournament in 6 or 7 hours online and win it, which live, that many hands would have taken 2 or 3 days of 8 hours a day. So the concession to the prize pool is made over the time that we invest because we can get in greater volume. True or false? There's little to no skill involved in tournaments because tournaments have a lot of variance. I hope that's false. This is false. Luck is a large factor, especially in the short term, but once you put in volume, skill is most important factor to have such long-term success in poker tournaments. Yeah, why do the same 5 guys make it to the final table of the World Series of Poker every year? What are they, the luckiest guys in Las Vegas? It's a skill game, Joe. True or false? The player in the big blind should defend in a wider range when there is a big blind ante in play compared to when there is a traditional ante in play in an 8-handed table. False. False. It does not matter if you paid the ante for the entire table. Once it is in the middle, the chips are no longer yours. They shouldn't be defended wider range than a traditional ante because you factor in the traditional ante into your defending range of the big blind. It's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? If a guy makes it 1,000 to go and you're in the big blind for 400 and there's 400 in the middle, it costs you 600 to call this guy's 1,000 plus your 400 plus the 400 you anteed. That's 1,800. It costs you 600. So it costs you 600 to win 2,400 total. So your odds are still the same. Just because you paid the ante in the big blind does not matter. The money's dead. It's out there. Let it go. It's just part of your factor of pot odds. It's not something extra you're defending. It's not like the small blind is 200 and your big blind is 800. No. The big blind is 4 and 400 is in the middle. If you play $155 buy-in tournaments and cash for $6,000, what's your ROI? Well, let's do the math. So, we played $155 tournaments. That's $5,500 of cost. We cashed for $6,000, okay? So we're going to take the $6,000 that we cashed for minus our cost, $5,500, $500 profit, divided by our cost, $5,500. Our return on investment was 0.09. So 9%, because obviously. Correct. 9% ROI equals the amount cashed minus the amount invested divided by that amount invested. 9% return on our money. Not great, but for 100 tournaments, not unreasonable. Personally, I square up somewhere about 20% ROI online typically. That's a little high. It's a little high because I'm cashing too much. I should be having a higher return on investment, lower cashing rate. But because of my bankroll where it's at, I have to go for cashes in a few more spots than I do wins because I need to stay in the game longer. So just a fact of life right now. So if you play $111 buy-in tournaments and cash for $75,000, what's your ROI? Well, I feel like that one's negative, isn't it? Okay. So we got 100 tournaments times $1,100, $110,000 in cost. So we cashed for $75,000 minus $110 in cost. Negative $35,000 divided by our cost of $110,000. Negative 0.32. So 32%. Negative 32%. Boom. ROI, amount cashed minus amount invested divided by amount invested. Boom. Now you understand ROI. This is the simplest way to figure it out. It's the only way to reliably figure it out. People who guess at their ROI don't fucking have a clue. And here's the thing. If you're guessing at your ROI, you're a losing player. That's the fact of the matter is your brain is trying to protect you. So if you really want to know your ROI, this is how you do it. You add up all your buy-ins, you subtract it from your profit or loss and divide it by the amount of your buy-ins. And boom, that's your ROI, motherfucker. You can't argue with the math. That's what we do. So we've been going for about an hour and a half now. I think this is a great place to stop. The next topic, which I am not going to go into right now, is equity. This is a great little subject. And you can see this entire course is 80 hours. 80 hours of video content. And then there's the quizzes after every one. So you can see it's broken up in 10, 15-minute bundles, usually 5 minutes, somewhere around there. And we have a lot of sections to go through. So pretty good. And you can see, we'll go back to the courses. This is the Tournament Masterclass. And as I go through these sections, it will mark it off. So this is the Introduction and Fundamentals. And there's 9 topics. We're about 50% of the way through. You can see a little circle. After this is completed, and we can expand this here, it says we've gone through the introduction, the tournament structure, the equity, the pot odds, and range we're going to go through those next. We're going to uncheck. Well, I can't uncheck them. But, oh, there we go. I've already gone through them again, I guess a couple weeks ago. But we're now still through the introduction, and we've been through tournament structure. Then we're going into equity, and as we go through, it'll all check off. And then this entire first bit, chip change value, all the way there, that's just this first part. So we're 55%. Well, I guess we're technically 30% of the way because I did this on my own. But we'll come back and do it. And I think this is a good method to force me how to get through this tournament masterclass in a timely manner again. So I think this is what we're going to do for a while. It still does have the quizzes at the end, and you guys are just going to learn along with me. So if you're here every day for the daily, the Wake Up With Me stream, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm probably going to be going over hands that I played the day before if I played, and then I'm going to jump in and do a section or two. And it's little bite-sized bits of information that you can stack together and really get a good lesson in through. So, but it's a great structure, and I love it. So there we go. I'll see you guys later. I'll be back about 3:30 if I play today. I should be playing. I feel like it's about 90-95%. So that's about 2 hours, 15 minutes. And yeah, I'll see you later, guys. Have a good day. Is there anybody I want to pass you off to? Let me see. Yeah, I'll pass you guys off to somebody. More of a fun streamer. So have a good time with that, and I'll see you later.